What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. In this current era of gaming, remakes are a dime a dozen, for better or for worse. The concept itself is sound enough, bringing back a classic, beloved game in a series and launching it into the current era. If done right, it can be an amazing experience for new and old fans alike. They could go around adjusting stuff that didn't exactly age all too well from the original, and add stuff from current era games in the series, or just in general, to make the game that much better. And, if you're really lucky, they add options to adjust certain things between new and old. Despite what you may hear out and about, remakes aren't the worst thing in the world. Over the years, especially recently, there's been tons of really amazing and well done remakes. We've had the Resident Evil remakes, the Dragon Quest remakes, the East remakes, the Star Ocean remakes, Tales of Grace's F, Freedom Wars. I know the last two are remasters, but I'm mentioning them anyways because they're just really good. And the list just goes on. However, notice how I said a remake can be amazing if done right. Yeah, unfortunately, not all remakes are created equal. They can vary wildly in quality. Sometimes it's hard to even call them remakes. To be fair, a lot of people do get remake and remaster mixed up, but that's besides the point. Just know that some remakes don't exactly have the same amount of love and care put into them as others. There's a variety of factors that could result in a remake that isn't exactly very good. The soundtrack of a game could be redone, only to have it sound way worse. The gameplay can end up changing way too much, alienating fans of the original. Or sometimes content from the original just doesn't make it into the remake for whatever reason. And the list could go on. For those reasons, remakes are kind of a touchy issue in gaming. It's rare to see a good in-between as far as I've seen. Most of the time, a remake ends up being more well-liked than not, but that doesn't stop people from absolutely despising remakes with all their soul. There's always something that's gonna upset at least a few people, and sometimes it's way more than just one thing. But what if I told you there's a certain remake on the horizon with seemingly no downsides at all? A remake with general and very noticeable improvements all around, and most important of all, actually made everyone happy. Well, I think I've been stalling long enough. You read the title, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not exaggerating when I say Trails in the Sky the First very well may be the greatest remake in all of gaming. That might sound a bit insane and maybe even delusional, but just hear me out. The reveal of Sky the First was a genuine surprise to pretty much everyone. Like, yeah, the fans knew a remake would be coming eventually, especially with Kondo teasing the announcement of some kind of remake in 2024. But the way we found out about it, looking back, is almost comical. The first time Sky the First was shown off was in a Nintendo Direct of all things. That alone is already pretty insane, cause I genuinely can't remember if a Falcom game with any kind has ever made an appearance in the Direct. Well, not an English Direct anyways. But what really made the reveal insane is the way it was shown in the Direct. You would think that a full-on remake of a beloved RPG would get some kind of short first look trailer to announce it. Well, that is what we got in the Japanese Direct. In the English Direct, the game was shown off in a highlight reel, along with a bunch of other games. I know so many people saw the literal seconds of footage of the remake and genuinely lost their minds, myself included. It's even funnier now because apparently not even Falcom themselves knew the game was gonna be in that Direct. And that's definitely something that could only happen to a company like Falcom. But that's all besides the point. The reason everyone really lost their minds at the announcement of Sky the First, aside from where and how it was revealed, was what they saw with the first look. It's no stretch at all to say that this is the greatest looking Falcom game we've ever seen. It's genuinely so beautiful to look at in both screenshots and in motion. The fact that this game, which is on Switch by the way, looks better than their most current release game is actually insane. I feel like the Falcom is always one generation behind notion is genuinely dead and gone at this point. If this game looks as good as it does, the new games we're gonna get are gonna be mind-blowing in terms of both visuals and animation. Also, I low-key just noticed this, but Sky the First is coming to PC, PS5, and base Nintendo Switch. I'm like 99% sure this is the very first PS5 level game coming to the Switch. Well, one that isn't either a cloud version or an awful port anyways. I still think it's crazy how good they got the game to look despite having a Switch version. Ys 10 on Switch doesn't look anywhere near as good as Sky the First. Although you might just have to chalk that up to the art style. It's really pretty. Either way, they've been going all out recently. You can see that Falcom is constantly improving with every new release, and Sky the First is definitive proof of that. It's such a good looking game that people were saying that it didn't even feel like Falcom made it. Falcom even had to reconfirm that they were making the game entirely in-house with no extra help. But visuals aren't the only thing that matters, even if they are really amazing. There's even more to this game that puts it on an entirely different level in terms of remakes. That being the changes and improvements to gameplay. It's not like we've actually gotten a chance to play the game yet, and to be honest, we haven't even seen that much in general. But going off the footage we have gotten to see, Sky the First is going to be generational, even from a gameplay side of things. For one, and this was honestly the most shocking thing to pretty much everyone, this game seemingly has very little or maybe even no loading screens at all when you're out on the field. For a Falcom game, that sounds like a genuinely impossible feat. But somehow, some way, they managed to pull it off. It looks like the game is just entirely seamless. There's no loading screens in between sections of an area anymore. In previous Trails games, at least the ones I've played, if you're out in the overworld or in a dungeon for example, the place is split up into sections you have to load into. Not that crazy of a concept, pretty normal stuff. Damn near every game does something like that. But to go from that to being able to just run across an entire field one side to the other and even straight into a town without a single loading screen in sight is just wild to see. You'd think you were playing an Ys game with the field that huge. Actually, now that I think about it, if Falcom is able to pull stuff like this off now, the next Ys game might just do the same thing of making things almost or just entirely seamless. That's probably a thought best saved for another video though. The fact that Sky the First is seemingly entirely seamless is gonna make playing the game feel like a completely different experience. But at the same time, the areas themselves seem to have been remade practically one-to-one. Of course, we haven't seen that many areas of exploration, but from the clip we've gotten to watch, it seems really faithful. That alone makes this a pretty well done remake, but I haven't even gotten to the battles yet, cause man, there is so much going on with this. Before I get into it though, let me just say I've only recently beaten Cold Steel 1, so I know I'm not exactly the most qualified person to be speaking on the gameplay of the remake, but just try to bear with me, cause even as someone who isn't completely caught up with the series yet, I can still notice and appreciate the changes for the gameplay of Sky the First. For one, and this was instantly noticeable once we saw more of the combat, they've added follow-up attacks in battle, similar to the Link attacks using the Arcus units from Cold Steel. Those follow-up attacks made the battles in that game really fun. There was just a real nice flow to combat thanks to getting those follow-ups, especially if you manage to get multiple in a row. Them adding this to Sky the First is definitely nice to see. Even if it wasn't in the original, the follow-up attacks just feel so natural, like it's a core part of the combat of Trails at this point. I honestly couldn't see them reverting back to how the game played in the original. It would have felt wildly limited compared to what we have currently. Although, since the Arcus units weren't exactly a thing in the Sky games, I gotta wonder how they're gonna make these follow-up attacks work. It wouldn't be too crazy if they just explain it as the characters slowly becoming more in sync, allowing you to do follow-up attacks, or something like that anyways. Aside from that, they've also added something from the more recent games in the series. The real-time action that was introduced in Trails Do Daybreak is also in Sky the First. To be completely honest, I wasn't even sure if this was gonna make it into the remake or not. Although, to be fair, nobody really knew how the game was gonna play until it got announced. But the fact that it's even here in the first place is hype. The Daybreak games already seem insanely fun, so it being here is a massive positive. There was nothing similar to this in the original games. In fact, you couldn't even hit the enemies on the overworld. that was added in Trails from Zero. Just like with the follow-up attacks, going backwards gameplay-wise just to preserve how the original game played wouldn't have been too good of an idea in this case. Besides, from how it's been described, the real-time combat seems to be completely optional. You can either fight entirely with the real-time combat or only use the turn-based combat. At least I think. I'm not exactly sure how it worked in the Daybreak game since I'm nowhere near getting to play those yet, and the descriptions of the combat are pretty vague as of right now. But either way, having options on how you want to experience the game is really nice. To be completely honest, I low-key feel like this is the first time a game remake has been well liked by everyone in the fandom. It's honestly pretty rare to see. I still remember the day the trailer for Persona 3 Reload got leaked, and I saw so many people instantly going, oh, this kinda looks like shit. Granted, some of them did have legit complaints about how things looked, while others were kinda just hating. But you really don't see anything like that here. Off the first reveal alone, the reaction was overwhelmingly positive, and the more we see of the game, the more we wish we could just play it like right now. When this game drops, and if it ends up being as good as the trailers make it out to be, I'm just saying, we're gonna have to have some uncomfortable conversations about a certain other company and their remake. And yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say. Sky the First is already shaping up to be an absolute 10 out of 10 banger for Falcom, and the game is still months away from dropping. I just know as more of the game gets shown off, the more hype everyone's gonna be, myself included. It still feels a bit crazy to be talking about a remake of a game I just played last year, but hey, either way, I'm gonna be there no matter what. Anyways, that's all from me. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. Alright, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.